Three families returned him, 58 days in Kennel 14. His original owner had loved him for 6 years, and when she was gone, everyone else decided he was too much. But one woman walked into that shelter on a Saturday morning, heard his story, and said two words that changed everything. "I'll take him." What happened on night one left her completely speechless. She almost didn't stop. She was already past Kennel 14 when something made her turn around. Not a sound, not a movement, just a feeling. The specific, uncomfortable feeling of being watched by something that has already decided what it thinks of you. He was sitting in the back corner, perfectly still. 11 pounds of cream and caramel fur, flat face, ice blue eyes, and the expression of a judge who had heard your case, considered the evidence, and found you wanting. His name was Winston. He was 9 years old. He had been returned 3 times in 58 days, and in 4 hours, the shelter would be closing for the weekend. Nobody knew it yet, but this was the last chance either of them was going to get. Carol Bennett had worked at Millbrook Animal Rescue for 19 years. She had seen animals come in and go out and come back again more times than she could count. But Winston was different. Not because of the face, she'd seen plenty of flat-faced Persians in 19 years, because of the file. 6 years with the same owner, a woman named Margaret who had lived alone on the east side of the city, and by all accounts had loved this cat with the specific, total devotion of someone who has found their person and doesn't need anyone to understand it. When Margaret passed in February, quietly, in her sleep at 71, her nephew had brought Winston in. He'd carried the carrier to the front desk, set it down, signed the paperwork in under 4 minutes, and left without looking back. Winston had not eaten for 3 days after that. The first family took him home on day 9. They brought him back on day 20. Too hissing, they said, too difficult, too much. The second family lasted 11 days. He hid under their guest bed for the entirety of it and emerged only at 2 a.m. to eat and, apparently, to knock a $34 succulent off the bathroom shelf. Deliberately, the family said, like he planned it. The third family returned him on a Sunday with no explanation and no eye contact. Carol taped a note to Kennel 14. Highly sensitive, lost his cursin, needs time, which she didn't write because there was no polite way to put it on a kennel door, was this: he is grieving, and he has decided that if love is going to cost him this much, he would rather not try again. She told every visitor that part anyway. Every visitor nodded, looked at the flat, angry face, and moved on. Laura Hensley was 43 years old and had not cried in front of another person in 6 months. She had gotten very good at the specific skill of holding it together in public and falling apart in the parking lot of the grocery store, or in the shower at 6 a.m., or in the car outside her apartment building, sitting with the engine off, waiting for her face to do something normal before she went inside. The divorce had been final since January. The house was sold. The life she had built across 11 years had been divided into a spreadsheet of assets and a storage unit on Route 9. She was renting now. 3rd floor, 2 bedrooms she didn't need, a kitchen island that was too tall, and a silence in the evenings that had weight. She hadn't planned to go to the shelter. Her sister had sent her the link as a joke. This cat looks like how you feel at 8 a.m., and she had actually laughed for the first time in longer than she wanted to count. And then she'd looked at the photo for 6 minutes and driven to Millbrook on a Saturday morning without calling first. Carol met her at the front desk, ran through the standard questions. Then she said, the way she always did, "There's one I want you to meet, but I need to tell you something about him first." She told her about Margaret. Laura stood very still for the entire story. Then she said, "Take me to him." Winston looked at her like he looked at everyone, like a customs officer reviewing documents he was not impressed by. Laura crouched down in front of the kennel. She didn't reach in, didn't make sounds, didn't do any of the things people do when they're trying to charm an animal into liking them. She just looked at him. "I heard about Margaret," she said quietly. "I'm sorry." Winston held her gaze. 3 seconds, 4, 5. Then he stood, walked in a slow circle, and lay back down facing the wall. Carol started to say something diplomatic. "How much is the adoption fee?" Laura said. $95 for a cat his age. Laura opened her wallet. "I'll take him." If you're still here and haven't subscribed yet, honestly, that stings a little. Hit subscribe. You'll want to see where this goes. The first night was not beautiful. Let's be honest about that. Winston spent 2 hours in the carrier after she set it on her living room floor. Then he emerged, surveyed the apartment with the brisk efficiency of a property inspector who had seen better, and disappeared behind the couch. He stayed there until 11:52 p.m. Laura sat on the floor with her back against the couch for 40 minutes, not looking at him, not talking to him, just being in the same space. She had a cup of tea that went cold. She read 3 pages of the same paragraph twice. At some point, she realized she had been sitting on her own floor in silence for almost an hour, and it was the most peaceful she'd felt since January. At 11:52 p.m., Winston walked out from behind the couch, crossed the room with the slow dignity of someone who has made a decision and is not going to discuss it, jumped onto the far end of the couch, turned twice, and lay down with his back to her. Not touching, not close, but in the same room. Laura looked at the ceiling for a long time. She did not feel alone. By day 3, Winston had established the rules with the quiet authority of someone who had done this before and had no interest in negotiating. He would eat only after she left the kitchen. He would sit in the same room, but not within arm's reach, a distance of approximately 4 feet, which he maintained with impressive consistency. He would sleep at the foot of the bed, not on it, and if her feet drifted too close to him in the night, she would wake to find him sitting on her nightstand at 3 a.m., staring at her with an expression that needed no translation. But there were small things she started to notice. On day 5, she dropped a full coffee mug on the kitchen floor. The crash was loud enough to send most cats under the bed for an hour. Winston walked in from the living room, assessed the situation, looked at her, looked at the mess, and sat down 3 feet away in complete silence, just present, as if to say, "I saw that, it's fine, clean it up." Moments like this one are exactly the kind that deserve to be shared. On day 8, she came home from a work dinner at 9:47 p.m. and found him on the windowsill, watching the street below. He turned when she opened the door. He looked at her for 2 full seconds, then he turned back to the window. But he had turned. He had noticed. On day 11, she was on the phone with her lawyer, a call she had been dreading for 3 days, and she sat on the kitchen floor halfway through it because her legs stopped working properly. When she hung up, she was still on the floor, back against the cabinet, staring at nothing. Winston came in from the hallway. He walked up to her with the slow, deliberate steps of someone approaching carefully. He pressed the top of his head against her hand once, firmly, like punctuation. Then he walked back out. She sat there for a while after that, not crying, just breathing. Some kinds of love are very quiet. They don't announce themselves, but you feel them. The night that changed everything came 3 weeks in, on a Tuesday. It was 1:14 a.m. Laura had woken up for no reason, the usual reason, the absence, the silence with weight, and couldn't get back to sleep. She was lying in the dark, looking at the ceiling, doing the mental arithmetic of the past year, the way you do at 1 a.m. when nothing is stopping you. What she had, what she'd lost, what the apartment sounded like when there was nothing in it. She heard a sound, low, resonant, steady. She looked down. Winston had climbed onto her chest, not her feet, not the edge of the bed, her actual chest, all 11 pounds of him arranged with the careful precision of someone who has thought this through. His chin was resting just below her collarbone. His eyes were half closed. He was purring, not a polite purr, not a tentative purr, but a full, committed, whole-body purr that she could feel in her sternum. She lay completely still. She was afraid if she moved, he would leave. He didn't leave. She put one hand on his back, very slowly. He pressed down slightly, settling deeper into the warmth, and the purring got louder. Laura stared at the ceiling in the dark at 1:14 in the morning with a grieving Persian cat on her chest who had decided, in his own time, on his own terms, that she was worth the risk. She cried, properly this time, not the parking lot kind, the other kind. Winston did not move. Carol called in October for a routine check-in. Laura told her about the windowsill, about the 3 a.m. nightstand stare, about the coffee mug, about that Tuesday night. There was a pause on the line. Margaret used to say that Winston picked people the way some people pick a home. He'd walk through, look around, and decide whether you were worth staying in. Laura looked across the room. Winston was sitting on the back of the armchair she'd bought secondhand when she moved in. The green velvet one. The one that was slightly too big for the space, but that she'd bought anyway because something about it felt right. He was watching her with his permanent expression of magnificent, unhurried judgment. She thought about 58 days in Kennel 14, 3 families, 4 minutes of paperwork and no eye contact from a nephew who didn't look back. She thought about a note on a kennel door. Needs time. She thought, he didn't need time. He needed the right person. He found her, Laura said. If you're thinking about adopting, especially an older animal, especially one who's been returned, especially one whose face the world has decided is too difficult, please don't walk past that kennel. The ones who take the longest to trust you are often the ones who will trust you the most completely when they finally do. Give them what Margaret gave him. Give them what Laura gave him. Give them time. Because somewhere right now, a cat is sitting at the back of a kennel, watching the door, waiting for someone who will stay. Don't be the fourth family who walks away. Is it love or is it grief that finally teaches us how to let someone in? Tell me in the comments.